Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Adam. I'm Head of Marketing at the Institute of Sales Management, and I'd like to welcome you to this first webinar of 2019. I know you'll get plenty of practical advice from today's session, which you can start applying to your own roles straight away. This webinar, once delivered, will be made available on demand as soon as we finish, so you can watch it as many times as you'd like and at your own convenience. During the webinar, you'll be able to ask any questions you'd like by typing into the box. I will answer any questions you have at the end. Now to introduce our presenter today. Ian Sinnott has been in the business communications and technology world for 30 years. Initially driven by a work-hard mentality, Ian has over the last 10 years especially become more focused on ensuring that effort is put in the right place and that technology is employed wherever possible to do the heavy lifting. He is a sales and marketing director for Vanilla IP, a company with leading business communication resellers in the UK and renowned for innovation and a world-class management and automation portal called UBoss. Today's subject is a real favourite of Ian's and a driving force in his own management style. I'll pass over to Ian now, and he'll be the next voice you hear. Ian, over to you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you everybody for taking time out of your day to join this webinar. I am a sales and marketing director of an innovative technology company. And this is one of my favorite subjects and something that grows every time I go back and look at it again in importance when it comes to chasing growth. Like many of you, I'm sure, we started 2019 with an objective to grow, to be better, to be stronger. And it's interesting how few people that I meet put a tremendous amount of focus on personalizing the use of technology and trying to gain the greatest possible yield out of either themselves as a member of the workforce or other members of the workforce as well. So what I'm going to try and run through here is just a thought process and some considerations that I've built up over the last little while. And when I start to work with my teams and when we're going through things and when we're talking to customers, we're also looking at exactly how we can properly tailor and properly personalize technology to get hold of that elusive extra 10%. But I suppose the first thing we should do is try and understand what we mean by gaining an extra 10%. And you might look at this in two ways. As an organization, it's quite common to look at 10% in terms of productivity. So how can we be 10% more productive? We know that productivity comes from happy members of the team, so perhaps we could look at happiness of the team, but also we know that happy customers buy more. So if we could create a 10% lift in the happiness of our customers, then perhaps that again would yield financial rewards to us. 10% more sales is pretty obvious. 10% less errors, for those of you who are counting the cost of crediting customers or losing customers through churn, that may be the primary focus in keeping a revenue base together. But having better contributors, being a better contributor to the organization yourself or having better contributors is certainly a way that an organization can increase its dynamism and resolve issues and come up with new ways of generating productivity or revenue itself. So fresh ideas coming from those better contributors is a business look at how we might drive things forward. From a more personal point of view, our motivations may be slightly different. And as a member of a workforce, but also the member of a family group, it may be that I want to see myself get the job done quicker and lose less of my personal time. So as the introduction stated, I used to be a work hard sort of person. But as life comes along and as you get children and you get other things in your life that you want to spend time on, you can start to become a little bit greedier about your personal time. And that in itself is a driver to be more productive and more efficient. Happier in the work, again, we work better when we're happier. Less pain, I'll let you into a couple of secrets as I go through a couple of slides as to how I address some pain issues. But we should be looking at our workforces and making sure that we're not ignoring some real physical challenges that some people come up against. And if we drive through, again, stress is one of those things. As a world, we talk a little bit more about mental health, but stress, just not being relaxed, being uptight, being sort of demotivated by the pressures of the world can also be something that's blocking our productivity. And finally, or nearly finally on this list, from a personal point of view, if you're in the sales business, it might just be that you want to ramp up your commission. So anything that helps you achieve greater returns would be great. So, and again, along with that, career development. So when I start to look at what that 10% is and how I might deliver it, then I can look at it and I'll break it down into several different elements: time, money, focus, happiness, and openness. And I'll apply it to me, but I'll also apply it to members of my team as I try to work out how to release any hidden potential that is not currently in play. And I suppose one of the things that I've seen when I've worked with organizations, and I've done a couple of stints as a management consultant, is that companies rarely drill down beyond the team if they drill down at all. So when looking at technologies, we often look at organizational technologies that are shared equally across the whole organization. And sometimes we drill down to make sure that different groups, different teams within our organization are adopting things that are most appropriate to them. But if we look at a team, if we look at an army unit itself, it may be that within that team we have very specifically different technology needs. The bomb disposal guy needs a completely different kit set to a man who's working with light armaments, a bombardier working with a mortar. Those particular teams need personal kit and general kit that's very different to each other. Equally, if we're dealing with a sniper, they have very different requirements to the medics within your squad. So we already know we can break them down to smaller unit groups, but if we drill down one stage further, the sniper has a job, and the job is done best if he's got the piece of kit that fits him best. So whilst there might be some standard issue within the armed forces, there'll be personalization that's based on the quality of the result when they drill through. And again, as organizations, we need to start looking at how we enable both the team and the individuals within it. So relating it back to my general industry, the one we work in at the moment of communications, business communications, we do talk about enabling the company with certain technology tools. But when we do this, we encourage them to look at the workers, the workforce that sits using them. So in managing inbound communications from a customer base, we'll talk about different sorts of queues, call back queues, chat queues, social media queues. And if we're not as sophisticated or not as fast moving, it might be the simple hunt group. But we need to use these generalized tools to help the business transact, but we need to look at the people that sit on the end of it. Equally, when we come to the world of collaboration, which is a much talked about new investment in technology, there are innumerable options for us to look at. MS Teams is one of many different team working products that you can invest in. Dropbox Paper, TeamViewer as a team share, Slack as a common collaboration tool. So there are plenty of things to look at, and whilst we look at them, we've also got to look at the adoption capability of the staff that we've got. It may be that we need to start simpler or remain simpler with conference bridges, simple chat and email, and we might just share documents through file share systems like Dropbox and SharePoint. So there, when we're structuring the organization, we're looking at which of these toolkits comes in. If we can go and use something efficiently like Salesforce, then it's a very powerful thing. If we don't use it efficiently, if the staff don't adopt it, it's an expensive investment which might take money away from other things that we can do. And then we also look at the actual enabling tools, the thing that might allow us to be more mobile or more flexible with our workforce, just the laptops, the mobiles, and the home office kit that we might make available. But that's looking generally at the toolkit that we put in as an organization. How do we boil down now and start to look at individuals in a slightly different way? And in order to take a closer look at that, I'm just going to use me as an example and share with you some of the things that I've done over the last 10 years that have increased my personal productivity, my personal happiness, and dumped a bit of pain that I really didn't want to have. So at top left-hand corner of this, you'll see I'm either the world's biggest fan of the Bee Gees, and this is my Robin Gibb impression, or as a few of you may recognize, this is a bit of technology I've invested in to overcome some of the challenges of dyslexia. Unbeknownst to me until my daughter was diagnosed as dyslexic, there are some optical tools that you can purchase which help to stabilize the page that you're reading and allow you to read more quickly, with fewer errors, and with more confidence. So I've invested in approximately £250 worth of blue tinted glasses, having gone through the process of sitting on a machine and monitoring innumerable color choices on lenses. And I can tell you, I was astonished the day that it happened, exactly how much difference that makes to somebody who struggles with reading. So again, if you're talking to people in your organization who are required to read, but have a dyslexic issue, it doesn't work for everybody apparently, but that may be technology you encourage them or even support them into investigating, because it will result in an uplift in their personal productivity. Below that, you'll see an Ergotron WorkFit desk, approximately £400 worth of investment, but this one pays itself back time and time again. I have a fragile back, I have a double disc injury in my lower spine, and it can create enough pain to make it impossible to sit at a desk. This particular WorkFit has already probably saved me 4 days this year in terms of allowing me to work. But again, if you've got staff who are either challenged by a spinal issue, challenged by sitting down too long, need to have a healthier way of digesting food after lunch, this is the type of technology that you could invest in, which makes their work performance much better, but makes them much more comfortable and capable in their work. And for me, a personal investment of £400 for my home office is a good investment just to keep me trucking along. The final one on this slide is pretty general, but it makes a big change in the way that I use my time and gives me both more work time and more private time. And that is the linking of a laptop to a mobile phone with a huge data allowance. And this is not this probably won't shock any of you. I'll be surprised if nobody's not using this already. But what it has allowed me to do, it has allowed me to select a different train to come to work. And what I now do is habitually avoid the fast trains, which are crowded and difficult, make me stand up all the way through London. I take the slow trains or I take the off-peak trains. I'm guaranteed a seat so I can get my laptop out. I schedule my work, so I'm doing mainly offline but with some online contact. And it means that my entire commute through London, which if you ask anybody is a nightmare and should never be done, my entire commute through London is work time. And that's simply by combining simple technology and a workflow process that enables me to use that time. And I become very frustrated if I have to travel at a different time or in a different way and stand there looking at my phone, not getting a lot done. So but that's three elements that I've employed to improve my own personal productivity. And if I just roll forward, we'll talk about a couple of the more communications technology elements which I've personally adopted to make me more efficient. The first one is call recording. Now GDPR has scared a load of people away from talking about call recording, but in my personal opinion, this is one of the most effective productivity tools that an organization or a person within an organization can adopt. From my point of view, it's about my memory. It's about being able to make more than just notes about some really detailed conversations I have. It's about being able to go back to a conversation that happened 3 months ago and not only understand what was discussed, which you can get from your well-taken notes, but the emotion and the actual reaction from the person I was talking to about those key elements that we discussed. So I'll download a recording onto my phone, take the dog for a walk, listen to that call again, maybe 30 minutes of conversation, and then it's so fresh in my mind when I go back to that prospect that my performance as a salesperson is lifted by quite a factor because I am so fresh in the memory of what we discussed before. Now, supporting that, on the right you'll see 4 screenshots of a little mobile app that I have on my personal mobile, and that allows me to do everything I would normally do with my business extension, including instant messaging, including pause and resume on my call recordings, because that is a GDPR requirement. But it allows me to hold, transfer, put conference calls together. I have my extension wherever I go. So I've been liberated in terms of where I can work and how I can work. I use call recordings so that I can retain the knowledge absolutely about every conversation that I have. And it increases my efficiency both at the time and later when I revise the work that I've done. And the final one I'm going to share with you, and if you write the name prospector down and mention my name to them, they might smile at me or give me a credit. But this is something I've been working on LinkedIn and using LinkedIn and social media to drive my productivity as a new opportunities generator in our company. And whilst I've tried to write interesting posts and I've tried to interact with people, it's hard work and it takes a long time, and I'm quite an expensive being in our company, I'm happy to say. So the actual return on investment struggles a little bit because of the man hours that I needed to put into it. So I came across this little prospector tool, which effectively pretends to be me with the initial stages of introduction and the initial stages of canvassing through the LinkedIn base. So using a script that I've designed and using a process that their system uses, it will introduce people who fit a criteria that I've set down. It will invite them to become linked in with me. And if they link in, it will communicate with them a couple more times using scripted posts from myself until such time as they actually interact. They write something physically back to me, at which point the communication is picked up and written down as a Salesforce task for me to follow up by one of my colleagues in the office. And essentially, this tool has allowed me to add probably 1,500 connections to my LinkedIn account. It's so far in January produced, I think it's 5 very good appointments for either myself or members of my team. And it's simply done that by, and it costs £300 a month, but that's so much cheaper than the amount of time that I would have had to have invested in that myself to make this LinkedIn product work most efficiently for me. So again, we're looking at technologies which I've invested in to take on a task that I can do myself, but I can't do it efficiently enough for it to be truly cost effective. So those are just examples of what I've done. And I'm not suggesting that you rock back and just adopt what Ian says, especially if you haven't got a spinal condition, you might not want the desk. But I hope it's opening your eyes to the ideas that you may want to look more closely and at what you could do to improve your efficiency. You may look at technology in a fresh way to say, it's not absolutely necessary, but it will release my time, my focus, my energy to be able to spend time on something else and add to the productivity rather than using all the time up on these existing ways that you're using. So just rocking forward then, if you like me, you're managing a group of people as well, it then shapes the way that you hold your one-to-one with them. And when you're talking to them about their productivity, you can bring into the subject, do you understand any physical challenges? Do you understand any mental challenges or stresses that may be simply reducing their productivity or their efficiency or their happiness? Can we identify ways in which we can support that and make them more efficient? Do we look at their family health? There's a real pressure if you're sitting in a position in a family, and many women at work will have this pressure more than men perhaps. But there may be old ones, the generation above you, who are starting to need more assistance. The young ones, the schoolgoers, who may need some care, especially when they're off. What are we doing to tool people up to be able to balance that with their work? And then when we roll into the technology, can we look at telephones? Can we look at apps? Can we look at PCs, headsets, handsets, tablets, cloud applications that actually fit them? When I was talking to Adam before, he said to me, I need to buy a headset because holding a handset to my ear is a pain. To which I replied, well, the answer's in your hands. Get on with it, sort of thing. So if we're looking with our teams at this, let's knock off some of these easy productivity constrainers and start to use simple, small bits of technology to just grease the wheels of every single members of our team. When we start to talk about flexible working, our industry is very blasé about this. We tend to throw out subjects that everybody can work from home. We do need to look at whether that is for the good of the employee or just a theory that makes us more fashionable. You need to have an environment at home that you can work in, and you need to make sure that the person you're offering flexible working to, or maybe even insisting that they work away from the office sometimes, genuinely wants to. It may be that they find the most enjoyable part of their work is to come into the office and commune. So it becomes a personal discussion rather than just some sort of board level principle, shall we, shan't we do this methodology of working. And then the last one I would say is, and this is quite a common split in different people, is when do people work best and when must they work? When must they work is when they need to work together, when we need to bring the teams together and we need to unify all of our strengths at one time. But when we work best, it may be first thing in the morning, it may be last thing at night, it may be on a Sunday, because Sundays are just the time that you like to dedicate to the catch-up. So we need to look and work and understand how we can help people to utilize that time and not feel that they have to be in at 7 o'clock on a Monday morning when they're much more efficient rolling in at 11 o'clock on a Monday and working until 8 o'clock at night. So understanding the objectives, when I talk to buyers and sellers, what I'm asking them to do or suggesting that they do is first of all understand the objective. What are we trying to do? We're trying to increase productivity. We're trying to find ways of getting the most out of everybody that we work with, and creating time to evaluate that. We're all busy. We're all time poor. But the first step that I encourage people to take is to step away and create enough time to look at it and ask this question and see whether or not there are opportunities to get a yield on small technology investments. But you have to take the time to do that. And see your employees as individuals, work with them and try to evolve these different steps forward for themselves. When it comes to selling technology, we like to sell technology to everybody and get as much revenue as we can from you. But you do, as businesses now, have a much wider choice in how you consume products. And I would really encourage you, it is always best to have a relationship with a supplier, because that means that they're going to invest in the long-term support structure that they point in your direction. But you should only really have to contract long-term to core services. Look for organizations who'll support you in 30-day agreements with peripheral products. Try stuff, adopt stuff that might help productivity, but only if you're able to give it back if it doesn't work. If Adam here buys a headset, he's stuck with it. But if we take a call recording service and we think this is great, but we never actually go back and listen to the recordings, and it's not effective, we shouldn't pay for it, we should give it back. So try and find suppliers who will help you to evolve your use of technology, evolve the use of technology with each of the members of your team, but not at a big capital risk, because that turns us all off. And the last thing I would say is you should trust people and trust people's intent, especially when they're talking about flexible working away. But as a businessman, I would also say make sure your suppliers can provide you with reporting tools so you can measure, manage, and be assured that you're getting the greatest return. I'm just going to summarize this up by introducing a member of my family. This is Millie. This is my 3 and a bit year old granddaughter. And for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you may be able to spot from the top left-hand picture that Millie was born without any fingers or the palm of her left hand. To Millie at the moment, this is just business as usual. She doesn't really miss what she's never had, and she cracks on and does pretty much everything she wants to with a smile on her face. But we do have all the experts in place to help her. She's associated with Great Ormond Street. She's associated with the Stanmore prosthetics team, and they've already introduced her to some technology to get her used to the fact that she can ask for tools. And you can see her playing with one there. She barely uses it. It lasted for a while, and she could put stickers on it, which made it fantastic. But other than that, it's pretty much been cast aside. But if you see the little lad on the middle of the left-hand side, as Millie moves forward, as Millie decides things that she wants to do, as Millie has new challenges or new exciting opportunities, you would not be surprised if she started to adopt technologies to overcome the shortfall of her left hand and to make sure that technology reboosted her capabilities in whatever she wanted to do. And my point to all of you would be that both for yourself and for your staff, we shouldn't have to wait until there's something as clearly obvious as Millie's hand to take us into the world of technology and to look for supplements. We should go looking now at the simple things and the simple elements that we can adopt that just make us faster moving and more productive people. So that's kind of the only point I really wanted to make today, and I hope it encourages you to go down there. I think we've got a question that's come in, and it says, culture at work and people frowning on home working. Boss dislikes the idea of this sort of thing. How would I convince them? Well, I think the thing that convinces bosses most is productivity and the return of money. And I think as an employee, what I'd be asking them to do is invest in what I believe is a productivity plan. But you might have to build a business case up on that. If you're going to work from home, you need to prove that the environment is commensurate with doing the work. You may want to volunteer methods of measurement and management to make sure that there's no question about your involvement. And you need to potentially examine whether or not other employers in your space can offer you that sort of flexibility. This is a competitive marketplace, and my belief is that employers need to work with their employees if we're going to retain them, and get the maximum performance out of them. But I would certainly say, if I were you, I'd be looking to build a business case and put in front of them exactly how this could work. There may be some technology holdbacks within your organization, so it may take some time before the technology can be bled into your organization that allows you to do it easily and efficiently. But if they want to come talk to us about the technology that supports home workers, we'd be more than delighted to do so.
You've got one more question, Ian, that's just come through.
Well, I think at the moment, the most beneficial piece of technology to me at the present time is undoubtedly the WorkFit, because I've suffered about 4 back collapses in the last 4 months. And that thing has really kept me working at full productivity. So I would say that that's the glaringly obvious one at the present time. But the call recording overall, over a long period of time, is something that I truly believe makes my conversations with customers as effective as possible.
Well, what I'll do, Ian, is everyone who's asked the questions and anyone who will ask questions going forward, I'll make sure you get their information, and you can email them after this webinar is finished. But with time about to finish on this very quick 30-minute webinar, I'd like to thank Ian and his colleague Charlotte. Please tell me I've got the name right. In terms of giving their time to deliver this webinar. I'm not sure how to take the fact that I was the case study in most of those slides, but I'll take it. But thank you very much for your time, Ian. With a couple of seconds to go, do you have anything else to say?
GDPR, if somebody wants to give me a call, I'll happily talk through it. It's a pretty detailed subject, so but it's easy to get around as long as your supplier has got the right tools to support it. So I would encourage people to use it. It's not difficult to be compliant with GDPR, but you just need to find somebody who's worked hard to make sure that the service you're delivered covers all the angles that's there. But it's not as frightening as you think it is, but you need a decent supplier with a decent call recording system and reporting system to be able to deliver it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Ian, for your time. I'm going to wrap up the webinar. If there's any other questions, please do feel free to email us at info@ismprofessional.com. But Ian, thank you very much for taking the time. It's a good bye for me.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you.